Morning, fellow Toastmasters.
Morning.
How's everybody on this fine day? Excellent. That's what I like to hear. Start the meeting off with a few words of inspiration. Eric, are you ready to inspire us today?
Oh, I am definitely ready to for you all this morning. Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Today's inspirational quote a little ties in with the theme this morning by Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Mr. President.
Awesome. Thank you. And let's do the pledge to the flag. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A few housekeeping items before I bring up the Toastmaster of the day. We did have a table at the Celtic Festival and many volunteers. So thank you, Tom, that volunteered at parking, and many others at the club that volunteered for the club. Usually the Celtic Festival kicks us a little bit of money for volunteer hours our way to help fund to our club, which is awesome. We did have a table there. We had 6 people actually at the table. Jackie was one that stopped by and kept me company, which was nice, and promoted a little bit. And Len was there, myself. Eric apparently did it after I was gone, so that was cool on one of the days. So we got to like the group participation with that. And did have one person, at least one, but numerous people that talked to us about Toastmasters. The one who simply came up and into the room itself and didn't go to any other table and just talked to me about Toastmasters. So hopefully this, if you see a guy with ginger hair, little beard come in, that's probably him. So hopefully we'll recruit him. So that was kind of fun to do that. So we had a good weekend doing all of talking about Toastmasters and enjoying the Celtic Festival. We did have an officers meeting yesterday. And in regards to the officers meeting, we did discuss that Len brought up that we needed a new computer, and our funds, according to the previous treasurer, are enough to cover the cost of a computer. Len gave us a quote. Len, would you like to come up and just talk about the need for the computer, just briefly?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. We use 2 PCs to run this hybrid meeting. One does the camera for the lectern, which I'm using right now. That's a laptop, and that's been cutting out on us a few times during the meetings in the past. I don't know if it's overheating or what. So that's the one we're looking to replace. There's a second PC, which is on loan from me, that actually runs the Zoom meeting and remote controls the other PC. So this is a step toward the club attaining all the equipment that it's using currently for these hybrid meetings, and I appreciate your support with that. Thank you.
So that explains the need for the computer. The cost of the computer is $347.76 to be exact. So we would need to do a vote from the club to do that. So I would ask the floor for a motion.
So move.
So moved. Thank you, Margot. Do I have a second? Second.
Here.
Sylvia and Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor of getting a new computer? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. So we will charge our treasurer and our computer whiz, Len, to get together here and pick up a computer in the near future. So that way we can improve our delivery of the hybrid meetings. Dues are due. For those of you that have not yet sent a check to Beth, the invoices were sent out. Is anybody missing an invoice or need another invoice? Okay, so yeah, we have a question from Nancy. Did you try to pay the Toastmasters International directly? Is that what you tried to do?
We're gonna do it at our website.
Thought I did, okay.
Okay, so that was a tech issue there. Yeah, so you can't do a pay directly on our website. So a check has to be sent or brought to the meeting, to Beth. There's probably PayPal too, I think you could do.
Why not? No.
Hmm.
And this was from the link on our website?
Okay, shouldn't be a problem, unknown why. Maybe if you could just, reach out to Beth and or bring in a check, that would be helpful. I always we want to get that in pretty soon. The deadline's coming up here, and so we can make our check the box off for the Distinguished Club program. Harvest Picnic, Katie's in charge of that. That is coming up on the 2nd. That'll be in Margin Manor. Thanks for hosting us, Margot. Eric mentioned that he would help organize that a little bit in regards to sending out messages on Facebook and whatnot, because he's kind of working with Tom in that regard. In regards to the electronic promotion of the club and events. We do want to, I've had a number of members come up to me and ask about ordering name badges. So the international website was down in regards to ordering. I don't know if that's changed. I have to check for the recent update. But I'm going to send an email around to see who wants to get badges or needs to get badges. So if you could just respond to that email, I'll make a nice list. We'll get a price, and then we'll collect some money, and then we'll order. Okay. So
Jerry,
yes,
Jerry,
yes.
usually when someone gets their first path, we would order the name badge for them as our gift.
Okay, so I could look into that. Who's finished their first path, maybe?
Yeah, because it used to be when they got their CC, which we don't have anymore.
So I will look into Katie would work with Kate for that, I guess, and see who needs to get one. But I know there's some veteran members that would like to get one as well. And mine is out of date, as you can see. So I need to get one. I have an old one. Somehow it disappeared. So a number of things happening at our officers meetings. There'll be more coming up. I just have to discuss it with the different officers to make sure that we're working out some details, but more coming in the future. So exciting. Okay, let's bring our Toastmaster of the day here. Welcome, Sylvia. Here.
Thank you, Dr. Gerald Stevens. I would just want to do a little housekeeping before we start. First, for the people in this room, do we have a ballot? Please take a ballot. I made agendas up. I have a great picture on our agenda. And I just wanted to check with David Jones. Did you get my email to ask you to be quizmaster too?
I did not get it, but I will be happy to do that.
Would you please? Thank you. So now I have all my roles filled. This was a great morning. This was good. I'm going to start with a little bit of history of this building, the one we're sitting in. It's old. It is originally known as the Bacon Merchant Morse Home. And I'm going to be reading a lot because there's so many dates and dollar signs and things. I just don't want to miss anything. So please excuse the reading of this presentation. This architecture of the stone house was well known in New York. It's a great example. It's a historical significant for its history. And it was several people in Lockport had homes like this. So started with Gilbert Bacon. He purchased this land in 1832 for $1,787. Then he built this home. In 1942, Mr. Bacon sold the property for $4,500. I think this was quite an expensive house at one time. I was trying to figure it out. And he sold it to Dr. George Merchant. He was a druggist and one of the most Lockport early entrepreneurs. Merchant began manufacturing a ligament called Merchant's Garling Oil. You got it. In 1833, he marketed this to help ill horses and injuries. Later in 1856, he sold this home and the business to a businessman for the merchants who formed the Merchants Garling Oil Company. And that was to Elijah Moss. Elijah Moss bought the home and the business. It was all done out of this building. Moss also was a town supervisor in 1849. According to the family, Moss did little unknown things. And one of them is we had the crawl space in the attic where he helped the slaves in the Underground Railroad, hid them out and before they went to Canada. Unfortunately, there's no documentation of it. It was very secretive. So after Mr. Moss died, his wife stayed here and the family stayed here another 50 years. In the mid-1910, the house was no longer used as a residence. Charles Moss, Elijah's grandson, and his wife, Frances Louise, were active in civil affairs. It was through their influence that this house came to be the headquarters of the American Red Cross during the World War I. The YWCA purchased this building in 1927, and as you know, we're still here. We're not going anywhere. So the design of the house in the 1930s, this is what you would see, the 30s and 40s. So in as I said, 27, the Y purchased this home. And how did the Y come to Lockport? That was the big question. So in England, in 1855, it moved across the world, actually, and it started in New York City in 1858 by Carolyn D. Roberts. And then our charter was incorporated in 1915. So there's a lot of dates, a lot of history here. And it's such an old, beautiful building, but it's a money pit, as you could tell. We put new things in. This room, as you see it, as a conference center, was the gym originally. People came here. Who came here? Told me they came here for dances. David, Phil did too. Jackie, did you come here too for dances?
No, I did not, but I once worked here.
And you worked here, yes. You have history with the YWCA, roller skating. One of our old employees, and I say old, not by age, well, she is by age, but she retired many years ago, Gail Mitchell. She met her husband here, and after 70 some odd years being married, they're still happy, believe it or not. So it does have history. So I am going to go into our roll holders, and Thomas is going to start us out with the word of the day. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. History. History is the writing down of events so that future generations can learn from it. So in that spirit, I used the word chronicle. It is a noun, a historical account of events arranged in order of time, usually without analysis or interpretation. I almost forgot the last word. Tried to memorize it all. With that, I will be counting. My job is to count the number of times the word chronicle is used. Also, as a reminder to our table topics person, that they need to mention that that needs to be used here in this club for table topics during your table topic speech. So I look forward to chronicling the number of times chronicle is used today. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
For the quote today, Eric volunteered to do the quote. Eric, you have a quote?
Yes, I do have a quote. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'll do a couple. This one is by Carl Sagan. To understand the present. And Oscar Wilde says, anybody can make history. Only a great man can write it. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Eric. Also, who has dual roles, David Jones. He's our jester, and he is going to be our quiz master. David, could you tell us about those two positions?
Quizmaster, I'll be listening for interesting tidbits from everybody, and we'll quiz you at the end of the meeting when called upon. And as not joke master, as jester, I have a few just for you. They are not in chronological order for history, but the first one is, why were the early days of history called the Dark Ages? Because there were so many nights. What kind of music did the Pilgrims like? Plymouth Rock. These are all teacher jokes, by the way. I'm from a teacher history site. How was the Roman Empire cut in half? That's the easy one. With a pair of Caesars. And Dave Licata's favorite part, this is my last joke. Where was the Declaration of Independence signed? At the bottom, exactly. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Could you tell us about the quiz master job?
I started with that one, but Quizmaster is I will be listening to interesting tidbits from everybody, and we'll quiz us at the end of the meeting based on what I pick up on.
Thank you. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Our master this morning, Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I don't think we have any guests here today, so everybody knows the drill. I'll be listening for ahs, ums, pregnant pauses, any filler words that tend to creep into our speaking opportunities. I will report at the end of the meeting. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Grammarian, Nancy Ferry.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. As grammarian, I will be listening for language and use of grammar, incomplete sentences, mispronunciations, grammatical errors, and tenses. I will also hope to hear some fabulous and interesting uses of words and language. And as Thomas, I will be chronicling the use of grammar and report back at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Our tech jester master this morning is Jill Rowling. Jill? Morning, Jill.
Good morning, Sylvia and fellow Toastmasters. My role today is to kind of watch for people to show grand gestures and not so grand gestures, and to report on hopefully no tech issues. So that is my job today. I will report back.
Thank you, Jill. Sure, I hit everyone. Timer this morning, Michael Licata. That's a very important job this morning. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. My job this morning is to chronicle everyone's time during their speeches. Our table topics are 1.5 to 2 minutes. Speeches are usually 5 to 7, and our evaluating speeches are usually 2 to 3. Thank you very much.
And I don't want to forget about my general evaluator, Jackie.
Thank you. I will be listening carefully and I will chronicle what I observe about the meeting at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Just gonna go back. I missed a whole section of my speech and really important for this building history. Before I start with our table topics, Carolyn D. Roberts, who started the chapter in New York City, was also on the ship from England with Mrs. George Chase. And Mrs. George Chase and many ladies, plus her daughter Ellen, they started the Lockport chapter here. And the funny thing is, women's organization, but it wasn't until the 1970s, women who were married were not known by their first name. They were known by their husband's first name. So we don't have a lot of documentation of people's first names of the early ladies of the board and the trustees and even working here. It's kind of funny. They're always Mrs. George Chase, Mrs. Elijah Moss, Mrs. Sylvia, will be Lawrence Baptiste. I wouldn't be known. And as a women's organization, it's kind of strange, but it is what it is. So this also, the chapter here, the YW, was also not only in this building, but it was in the Olson building. And then 1923, started actually at the Prospect Hall, then Olson building. And then in 1923, the Hook and Ladder house on 20 Locust Street. That's when they decided they really needed their own building. They were moved around like 4 or 5 times within those years, early years. So it wasn't until the death of Carolyn Wood, something with Carolyn in this organization, it really meant something apparently. Carolyn Wood passed away and she left the YW $3,000 to start the fund drive to buy a building. So they needed another $30,000. The Y Teens, which was also known as the Reserved Girls, and 200 other volunteers in the community and churches did this drive, and they earned over, actually they raised over $46,784, according to the books. And when they had the opening, there was over 600 members came to the opening. That was a good show out. It was very good. So now I am going to introduce our table topics, Gerald Stephens.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. History. Most everybody here probably knows or have heard me say at least once that I'm a big fan of history, but I did not know I was a big fan of history until Anne Marie Lenhart told me I was. One of our members. Because I would just talk about it from time to time. And she says, oh, you guys really like history. Yes, I do. So we have a few questions today. The pool of people available, Toastmasters available, is small. So pretty much everybody who doesn't have a job will be in table topics. I'm going to start off with Steve. If you had your choice to meet one or a few historical characters, who would it be and what would you discuss? What would you do with them? I think this should be an easy one for Steve.
Thank you. That is, to me, is a no-brainer. I would love to meet Edgar Allan Poe. And strange as it might seem, I might ask him, how did you die? He died under very, very strange circumstances. He was found extremely disheveled, wearing somebody else's clothes, and he died that way. So nobody knows what happened or how he died. Now, he was rumored throughout his life to be a drug addict. That's not true. That was put out there by his critics who were trying to discredit him. The quote was something along the lines of, you have to be a drug addict to come up with some of the stuff he comes up with. He wasn't. He was a strange man. He lived in poverty most of his life. He was always trying to borrow money so he could continue doing what he liked doing, which was writing. The Raven was his single most popular piece. And he gained some notoriety from that. Unfortunately, all of his works can be collected into one book, which I own a copy. And interesting, we should bring this up at this time of year as we're approaching headlong into the Halloween season. But another favorite character of mine will probably make an appearance somewhere, the Count. But I'll leave you with the final stanza of the Raven. And the Raven still is sitting, never flitting, on the pallid bust of Phallus just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon who was dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him gleaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow shall be lifted nevermore.
Very nice. Chills up my spine on that one. It's always a little creepy to me. Our second table topic participant in the chronicles of this meeting is Margot. I feel this probably could be an easy question for Margot too, but we'll see. Are you a fan, Margot, of an historical time period? If you were a time traveler and you could go back to that time, what would you do there? Would you fit in? What would be the pros and cons of going back to this time period that would be your favorite? Margot Bittner.
Thank you very much for this question, a slightly unusual one. I think, as people know, if you come and visit me at the winery, I do tend to dress in Victorian costume at times. Is that an era I'd want to go back to? While things would be slower and seem more formal and very dressy, and I would love that, I don't think I would want to do without some of my modern conveniences. Sorry, I like my dishwasher. There's a reason God gave me one. I think as I chronicle the things that have happened in history here, I like to go and explore historical sites, but as far as going back in time and actually living there, that wouldn't be my idea. I would like to go back in time for brief periods and meet some people, mostly, quite frankly, family members, and find out what the real story behind some of these tall tales I've been told are. Why did my grandfather leave the family? You know, what was Studs Terkel's relationship with some other famous people? There's some questions I'd like to ask along those lines. I'd like to know the truth behind my great aunt getting pulled out by her hair from quicksand on her way into this, leaving Russia to come to this country. So in that sense, I would like to go back in time. However, as far as living there, that definitely would not be my bailiwick in any sense of the word. And I know Mike is probably working on getting up there with the timer at some point. And quite frankly, this is about the only reason I logged in this morning, was I was concerned that you wouldn't have enough people to participate in table topics. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you for being a gamer, Margot. She does sound a little under the weather, so we appreciate that. I thought I saw Jason online. Is he still online? Len?
Yes.
Okay, Jason.
I don't see his video.
Don't-
Yeah, I'm here.
You are here. Great, great. I would like to see if you are able to participate in table topics today.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
You're ready. Great. So try to use the word of the day, chronicle, if you could. And your question, if you would choose to pursue this question, you could change it if you find it a little hard, but we'll see. If you could do something that would make you famous and make history, what would that be? And how would that affect your life? Jason.
Yeah. Well, as for me, thank you. As for me, I think I will, go back to do something related with my major, because, I'm good at it, and maybe I'll go back to do something like change the stock market. When there's a crash on the stock market, maybe I have some, maybe get some resources, or, first buy some lottery and win some lottery with that money, and, invest some stock in the market, because the market has a big influence about the economy. So maybe I'll go back and maybe trying to bring the stock market back, and trying to stabilize the stock market, and maybe if I can, get some money from that stock market, yeah, that's very great for me, because as a finance major student, we always want to be good at investing in the stock market. So I think that is that's one of the best way. Go back and do that thing. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I could get a word master's report. Tom, how did the word of the day do so far in regards to table topics and any other portion of the meeting?
Doing well with everyone except apparently table topics. I did not hear Steve or Jason use the word chronicle today. So Margot did use the word chronicle in her speech. Thank you.
All right. I would also like to get a timers report, because we do want to make sure we stay on time in Toastmasters. We don't like to speak forever, and people don't want us to hear us speak forever. So, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Sorry, there's one. Steve came in at 2:08, Margo came in at 1:40, and Jason came in at 1:25. So on time, everyone qualified. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In regards to the word, though, only one person used the word, so there is no need to vote, because that is how we are at AM Lockport. We make sure that we fulfill the requirements. But thank you for participating, everybody. Let's welcome our Toastmaster today back up, Sylvia.
Don't worry, Mike, I still have you beat with ums. Well, this morning we have 3 great speakers. I'm really looking forward to hearing all 3 of them speak. First, we have Mark Crane. Second will be David Licata, and then Nancy Rose. So our evaluator this morning for Mark is Jen Zapsas, who's on the Zoom. I saw you, Jen. Where are you?
Yes, I'm here.
You are. Jen, can you tell us about Mark's speech this morning?
Yes, Mark is giving his first speech with our club, his icebreaker speech. And the icebreaker is a way for us to get to know Mark and for him to practice his speaking skills and learn the basics of public speaking. So I'm excited to hear and learn about Mark. And do you have his title, Madam Toastmaster?
I do. It is the icebreaker. It's 5 to 7 minutes for the timer. I'm not sure if you. 4 to 6. Okay, 4 to 6, sorry. And he is working with the leadership. Mark, thank you.
Thank you, madam. I am providing a copy of my. Welcome, those of you that are at home or at work, thank you for joining us today. Today's speech, the icebreaker, will tell you more about myself and how I've used people from the Chronicles of Crane to come forward out of my stories about my family and myself to give vignettes on how these people have affected my life. And in the future, as I give you more stories coming from the Chronicles, you'll hear that these people have made an impact in my life. And they're actually two are friends, very close friends, and the other is a family member. So family can be friends too, and friends turn into family over time. Recently, because of this assignment, I've had a chance to reflect and look at the friends that I do have and what I admire in them and what points they have in their character that are similar to my own. And I know, like most of us, we turn around and we'll pick friends that are part of our makeup. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and that is a reflection of what's inside of me, Mark Crane. And that's the way I seem to choose friends. And now that we're getting older, we have a tendency to lose our family. And over time, we collect family along the way. And what we started out with is really kind of a mixed bag. And they often say that you can't pick your family. But later in life, as replacements, we tend to do so. We look for the things that are interesting of other people and how these things are interesting in us and how we relate to others in our community. The first one is a very, very close friend. His name is Bob. And I'll tell you his last name in a little bit. But he's a local businessman. And we started out in junior high school, of all places. And it's a very, very different time for all of us. We have to go through all kinds of changes, social, because we get new children that we're forced to go to school with. And you really don't know what your social level is going to be, or if we can adapt to this new environment. And you can either be lost when you go to junior high school or middle school, or you can jump in with both feet and try to make friends. And we really do need those people throughout life that we can hang with, that support us, and keep us from being isolated in the world. Because there's nothing like to put you more in, and we've noticed this in the last few months, that how COVID has put us in a state of depression and also isolated from the world. And this gives us a chance to share our hearts. Well, this young man, Bob, he came from a family that ran a restaurant. And he was very personable and electric. He wasn't the best of athletes. He wasn't the best looking kid in school. But I admired him because he seemed to get along with everyone. He adapted, and he was a joy to be around. People wanted to be his friend. And I certainly wanted that to be in my nature, that people would crave to be with me, and my company would help the group and not so much isolate me, because nobody wants to be isolated while they're going to school. It could be a very tragic time for you. And you also have to deal with those biological things that are happening to you too. And boy, that can be heartbreaking for some, and it can be absolutely a revelation to others. But he got into the business, and it was amazing that from that point on, this man, we've had a 50-year relationship, and I've been a part of every one of his major things that have happened to him from the time we met till today. I helped bury both of his parents. I sang at their funerals. I was at his wedding. the birth of his first son. And I actually met his wife while we were in high school, and we didn't even know he was going out with this girl. She actually had, she was in a coma, and in a tragic accident, her mother died. And I knew in the room that day that something different was going on. And reflecting back, he actually married that girl that day in that room. So nobody knew it. We were too young to realize true love and how that would connect with his future. But his name is Bob Kafora, and he runs a restaurant. And he's been very vital in the community. And a lot of people have worked for him and also depended on him for their income. He's a great guy. And the one I wanted to talk about today, you do know him. He's Marty. He's been a mentor to me. He really wasn't a close friend, but I knew about him. He went to school with all my cousins out at DeSales, and there were many. But he turned around and I always admired him because he got involved with the Knights of Columbus and community action. And I wanted to be more like that. And I wanted to put a little Marty into my life. And he makes me, I keep saying about Marty, he keeps me on the straight and narrow, because what he does is what I want to do too. And last of all is my son, Philip. He ever since he was a little boy, he was aloof, and he always took a long time to give out his love and his friendship to others. And it's a hard thing for anyone to do, but he's had to go up against a lot of the cancel culture things that we're dealing with today in today's society, and he's striving forward. He's 28 years old right now, and he's down in Cleveland, trying to be a physician's assistant. And he's active in the military reserve. He kind of followed after his father, and a long history of people in the military. We've had people in the military before we were a country, going back to 1640. We've had people in every major conflict, male and female. My daughter was my first lieutenant going into the Army full time. And those people and those characters, they're not characters, they're real people. You'll hear about them in future stories from the Chronicles of Parade. And thank you for your attention, and those of you at home, I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I can't wait to hear more about the people in your lives. We all love Marty. The second evaluator, Les Robinson, will be evaluating David Licata. Les, could you tell us about David's speech?
Yes, I will. David is going to be going through the pathways. He's going to be doing the storytelling, which will be the icebreaker for 4 to 6 minutes. And his title is Every Picture Tells a Story. We'd like to present David Licata. Thank you.
Please welcome David. Thank you, David.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and where are the guests? First of all, Sylvia, I'd like to thank you for the information you shared with us earlier, because that will enable me to do a little preamble. Now, when you mentioned the merchants, that gave rise to the Hodge Opera House. The Niagara County historian's name is Bacon, which means now I have to chase him down and find out if he's related to the Bacon you mentioned. So you've given me homework. This club has met in space formerly occupied by the Hodge Opera House. So there's a connection. Why dances right here? The church up the road, the Episcopal church up the road, they had dances as well. So right dead across the street where that drive-through is now, Pontello's Pizza, the first teen hangout. There was pizza before Pontello's, but that was the first teen hangout. So this was terrific. It is now known as Lockport Pizza. The history of pizza in Lockport is a whole nother speech, a whole nother story. Now, the reason I chose the story pathway is because it really and truly enhances your speech. And the purpose of a speech is to sell your ideas to a very comfortable group and move them to a place where they're not so comfortable. And that's leadership, and that's what Toastmasters is all about. A while back, when we met in the building next door, the former friendlies, we had a young lady from Siberia, total capitalist. She could not wait to get out of Russia. And she joined a club in Moscow, a Toastmasters club in Moscow, where you gave your speeches in English. So when she arrived in the United States, she thought she had it made, but still no one could understand her because she didn't know conversational English, and we helped her with that. And one day I went to tell her something. He said, with you, everything's a story. Well, somebody might have been hurt by that, but not me. I couldn't agree more. So how do stories enhance your speech? Well, getting back to my own situation, how I learned how they enhance the speech is that I was born in 1948. Television and I are one. We're together. We came up together. And God help the teachers that didn't entertain me with a story. That was a losing battle. That teacher just came up and was not animated and just mumbling through facts, I would tune out. Now, Dave, this is a nice little story. Dave, how long have you been a Toastmaster? Well, I was 2 years old when my father died, and my mother remarried. She remarried a gentleman named Carl Licata. So we thought it'd be cute that we'd let my new dad tell me a bedtime story. I'm 4 years old. I'm not making up the story. And he would read the speech like a little bunny rabbit hopped down the trail and then went down the hole. And I actually evaluated him. So that was my first time as a Toastmaster. I said, this guy's no more stories from this gentleman. Maybe my mother, maybe my grandmother, but certainly not this gentleman. Maybe he'll teach me how to throw a ball or something, but stories are not going to work. So that's where I learned the importance of vocal variety, even way back then. The poor teachers had to compete with Walt Disney. They had to compete, but most of all, they had to compete with a show on Channel 4, locally produced, called It's Fun to Learn. Stories enhance your speeches. They help you sell your point. And Fun to Learn is a thought that has stayed with me my whole life. And as a charter member of AM Lockport, that's my goal, to make it fun to learn. So I've always had that as a guide. That is part of the Dave Licata Chronicle. In junior college, I signed up for Shakespeare. I had great trepidation. I knew some Shakespeare from high school, but Mr. Marone was very clever. in those the primitive fall of 1967, he would break out a record player, play the Shakespearean speech. We would hear the actors, do the dialogue correctly, and read along. And that certainly didn't hurt us. So that's my goal. Tell a story with your speech, make it fun to learn, and you'll get your point across. And the sum total of that is you will be a leader. Madam Toastmaster.
Our final evaluator this morning is Marty Johnson, who has the pleasure of evaluating Nancy Rose.
Morning. Thank you, Sylvia. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. This morning, Nancy is going to be speaking from our project Motivational Strategies, Level 3. It's an elective project, Connect with Storytelling. And the purpose is for the member to practice using a story within a speech or giving a speech that is a story. Timer, 5 to 7 minutes. Madam Toastmaster, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. This title of Nancy's speech is Super Jared's Glowing Heart, Shining Out Love. Can't wait to hear this one. Nancy, please come up.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Madam Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, before I begin the speech, I want to tell you that recently I launched a book for children's charities, and it's Super Jared's Glowing Heart. Right now I'm practicing my launch speech, so I just want to thank you all for your patience with all of this. So before I tell you how the children's book, Super Jared's Glowing Heart, came to be, in which I hope I do it in chronological order, there's a question I want to ask you. Have you ever met somebody who had this special something about them that no matter what kind of day you're having, they just seem to lift you up and bring the best out in you? I happen to know somebody like this, and his name is Jared Lombardi. I've known Jared since he was 22 years old. People say he was born with a heart of gold. Jared's the one who inspired me to write the book. Jared's the one who inspired me to get it out to children's charities. And Jared's the person who invented the character Super Jared and made him come alive. Writing the book was a very personal journey for me because it did include a special friend. There's a lot of questions that I get asked along the way. For example, what prompted you to write the book? Did you run into any problems along the way? And what charities does it go to? Long story short, this is how it all started. It's true that Jared was born with a heart of gold, but he also was born with cardiac issues and grew up with special needs. Not too long ago, Jared called me to tell me that he needed cardiac surgery, and I told him that I was very sorry, and if there is anything I could do for him. He said, "Well, what are you doing right now?" I said, "Well, I'm writing something up for work." He said, "Will you write me something?" I said, "Sure, Jared, what do you want? Do you want a memo?" I said it in a teasing way. "Do you want a report? Do you want a letter?" "No, I don't want any of those things," he said. "Well, what would you want, Jared? What do you want me to do? Do you want me to write you a poem, a card, a book?" "Yes, write me a book. Will you write me a book?" "Absolutely, I'll write you a book." So heartfelt, I began to work. 2 months after our conversation, he was scheduled for his heart surgery, which went very well, by the way. The night before his surgery, I sent him the book, and his mother called and said it was beautiful and asked me to publish it. "Absolutely," I said. "What more can I do?" When I said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" I really meant it. But the fact is I had a lot of work to do. I had to illustrate the entire book, and I had to send it out for some constructive criticism to peers who knew the family and also who were leaders of the community, because we wanted it to go out to a charitable cause. My constructive criticism came back. It said, the book is beautiful, leave it the way it is, but you need to add a problem. Basically, I was told it needs a problem because we want to know more about Jared. Jared's problems and issues in his life has led him to be a leader. And in that sense, he has the capacity and the inspiration to inspire other children in their issues. Believe it or not, that presented a really big problem to me. Probably the biggest problem that I had along the way. I've faced many problems during that publication path, but this was the most important one for me to solve, because if I didn't solve it, my vision wouldn't come true. I had a lot of thinking to do, and I thought the story is an inspiration to children. It's about a boy who grew up with superpowers from his loving heart and his glowing heart that shined inspiration, love, and hope to all children. It didn't have a problem, and I didn't want it to have a problem because I didn't know how it was going to inspire people. But not everything is sunshine and rainbows, and neither is Jared's situation either. Even though his first surgery went well, he continues to need more. I had a lot of thinking to do, but I thought of Jared's determination. No matter what he goes through, he always seems to go through it with positivity and courage, and he continues to bring out the best in people. This helped me to develop the problem of the book. And then I thought of the quote by Maya Angelou, "Be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud." That quote alone helped me to illustrate every page and to use it as a backdrop of the book. And the book is 74 pages long. I can show you some pictures of the rainbow in the clouds. I accepted the challenge, but I decided to keep what I was written, which was the first 3 chapters, and squeeze in one more that had a problem. That problem took a child through the hospitalization process and the healing process. Upon review from my peers, it was accepted. And it was greatly accepted with embrace for a children's charity for the Buffalo Children's Hospital Foundation. When I reflect on my journey, there's a question I ask myself. Did I ever think the book would come this far? My goodness, no. But my reflection encourages me to write more children's books and to be very grateful for Jared. I am honored to work with Jared for charity situations, and I'm more excited to ever use the book to spread Jared's special kind of something to the world. Thank you.
Yeah, as I said, we had 3 great speakers this morning, and I'm glad I'm not voting. Timers report. Like.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you again, Madam Toastmaster. Mark came in at 7:48, but we don't hold him to time because it's his first icebreaker. David came in a little bit long at 6:32, and Nancy came in at 6:28. So you can vote for Mark or Nancy this morning. Thank you.
So please cast your votes for Mark or Nancy. Now I will go back to the evaluators. Jen, could you start us off, please, for Mark?
Yes, I'm excited to evaluate Mark today, giving his icebreaker. So it's always fun and interesting hearing and about new people who join the club and getting to see and evaluate their first speech. So Mark did bring some very interesting elements today. He started off and he came up to the lectern and he looked directly into the camera, which I thought was an excellent job as a new Toastmaster. Plenty of experienced Toastmasters never look into the camera, and Mark made a point to do that at the beginning and the end of his speech. It did fall off a little bit in the middle, but it did appear that he was making good eye contact with the audience in person. So I thought that was very well done. In terms of elements for suggestion, one thing I would suggest to Mark is as he was giving his speech, he started commenting on some of the things he was saying. And so it went a little off topic, and it was at times a bit difficult to understand what he was trying to say. It was detracting a little bit from the vignettes and the stories that he was trying to tell us. Overall, he used the three people in his life that he admired. Although he didn't tell us too much about himself, he used the qualities that he admired in them to help us understand who he is as a person and what things are important to him. I think that Mark also did a really excellent job with his pacing today. He didn't rush his speech. He was composed at the lectern. Some of his nervousness did come out today in use of filler words, which I know as an icebreaker, it's probably the most nerve-wracking speech that you ever have to give, hopefully. And when you give that speech, it's easy for those nervousness to come out in something. And I think it came out a little bit in filler words today. Today, I think Mark gave an excellent speech. It was, again, his first speech with the club, and he had a structure to it. He told us a little bit about himself, and I look forward to seeing him grow as a Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Also on Zoom, Les Robinson, he'll be evaluating David. Les, could you please start?
Yes, I'd like to. The Chronicles of Dave Licata. I cannot believe that Dave Licata did his first evaluation at 4 years old. So I think Dave was born with Toastmasters in his blood. And that's what I love about Dave. Dave is very proactive. He gave a very great speech, vocal variety, tone, pace. I loved how when Dave tells a story, I could see Dave sitting in bed and his dad, Carl, telling the story, and then Dave popping up and evaluating Carl. I could see that. I could visualize that. And that's what I love about when Dave tells a story, that you can visualize it so well. He does the, as you say, storytelling to get the point across, to be sales, whatever you want to do. Dave has that natural ability to put the story in your head while you're talking, and you can see it. And I love that about Dave Licata. It's just a great part of his speeches, the tone, the vocal variety. It's just a win-win across the board. The other thing I did really can only say the bad thing is that Dave did not keep time. And that kind of shocked me because Dave has been a Toastmaster forever. But overall, in Dave's complete speech, his vocal variety, his tone, his pitch, his control of the lecture, everything was a win-win across the board. And I've basically evaluated, I believe, Dave about 8 or 9 times, and he's always a great speech giver. He presents, and it's a win-win. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. Our last evaluator, Marty Jensen. Marty.
Thank you, Sylvia, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, and especially Nancy for the opportunity to evaluate you on your motivational strategy speech. I thoroughly enjoyed your speech project, Nancy.
Nancy's purpose this morning was to practice using a story within a speech or giving a speech that is a story. And Nancy did exactly that. And I liked when you started your speech, Nancy, right away, you asked us a question and then you paused and you made us think. So it drew us in. So that's a great technique to use. And you said, have you ever met someone that inspired you? And then you went into the rest of the body of the speech and you talked about Jared and how he inspired you to create this book. You had good facial expressions used throughout the story, your speech, when you were talking about the conversation, especially with Jared. I enjoyed that. You had eye contact throughout the speech. And I know that speaking with you before you gave the speech project, you said that you didn't want to refer to notes. And I think I only saw you once, look down, and it was not distracting at all. So kudos to you for achieving that goal as well. If I could give any suggestion for improvement, I would definitely say to prop the book or have an assistant prop the book somewhere for you. And at some point, probably halfway through the speech, you could have someone pass the book around. And the reason I say that is a picture tells 1,000 words. And I know you did open it up and show some of the pictures, but I feel that, in my own opinion, I feel that that would have been helpful. And towards the end of the body of the speech, I liked how you said you had the book reviewed and you had a suggestion to find a problem in the story and how you were inspired. And you used a quote. You gave a beautiful quote from Maya Angelou. And over time, Nancy, you'll be more comfortable to come out from behind the lectern. And one thing I would definitely suggest, and I know it's helped me and some other people, is even when you have a small meeting role, you can come out. Say if you have an master or a quote master, come out, because you're building what we call stage time. Each time you come up to give a meeting role, you could come out in front of the lectern here, and you could create that more comfort in yourself and confidence in yourself. And it does take time. I'm not rushing it. It'll take time. Overall, Nancy, I enjoyed your speech project and how you told us about how Jared's glowing heart spread love. Thank you. Madam Toastmaster.
Gotta ask Mike for our last timers report. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Jen came in at 2:11, Les came in at 1:59, and Marta came in at 3:09. So they all qualify this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please cast your votes for general evaluator. One of the reasons why I chose this topic this morning to talk about is last week, I was talking to Marty at the end of the meeting and talking about how it's so hard to get employees, like every other employer out there. If people show up for an interview, you want to hire them right there and then. And there is a work shortage, believe it or not. I never would have thought so, but when people don't even show up for interviews and fill out the employment papers and don't show up the first day, it's really discouraging to start looking for people. So I want to give you a little rundown because Marty was saying, well, did you ever think of kind of doing like a job share thing with DeSales? They have an after school program, before school program. I said, yes, we do it. we are it. So I'm going to run down a couple services that we provide. As I said, before school, after school, we have DeSales, Charles Upson, Newfane, the 3 Niagara Wheatfield sites, Eric Road, Colonial Village, West Street. We have Thomas Edison in Niagara County. We have Emmett Belknap before school. We have a universal pre-K, which I think you have heard me talk about many times at John Pound School. 2- and 3-year-olds. Preschool is more like an interaction, getting them acquainted with, to interact with other children their own ages. And then also we have a partnership with Lockport School District with the Universal Pre-K 4-year-olds. This summer we had a summer program for the Universal Pre-K children going into kindergarten. Very successful. It was a little bit of half a day of education. The afternoon was a summer camp program. We ran summer camp at West Street in Niagara Wheatfield, and of course, Niagara Falls, Carolyn's house. There's that name again, Carolyn. It always pops up. One of our largest programs right now is housing. We have Carolyn's house in Niagara Falls, one building, 19 apartments for low-income women and children. And I had a culinary kitchen. We did training, job training, not just only in culinary. We helped women go back to school in Niagara Community College and BOCES to get their GED. We have also a domestic violence program. There's another large program, heavily funded by the state of New York, unfortunately, but they see the need for it. We have a 24/7 shelter, domestic violence shelter here in Lockport, 3 transitional houses across the street, and one in Erie County. Can't remember the name of the street right now. Isn't that funny? Broad Street. Then we have another housing that just started September 1st, 12 apartments, studio apartments for low-income women at 49 Tremont Street. In 2014, we merged with the YWCA of the Tonawondas because we did not need 2 YWs in Niagara County. So we merged, and that's what we did with that building. It's very beautiful. It's a beautiful building right now. So other than that, and unfortunately the unhappy programs, as I said, is domestic violence, is rape crisis. There's another large program, and we have a 24-hour hotline with that, and advocates, and people go to the courts with the victims, help do order protection cases, and many other things. I could go on and on. Like I said, this side of the building was constructed in 1951. It opened up in 52, in 1946, almost as old as David. Racial justice programs, leadership developments, and it keeps going on. So I hate to say it, Toastmasters, you are a part of the YWCA history, and I'm glad to say it though. This is a great organization. So I would like to call up Jackie for evaluation this morning.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm definitely a part of the YWCA. When my eldest child was 4, she decided she was starting school. She wasn't old enough yet. She spent the summer learning to tie her shoes so she could go to school, and the only school she could go to was at the YWCA in their preschool program. Later on, I ended up working in that program as well as at the front desk. And many years after that, when I worked at the Housing Authority, when those first apartments on Walnut Street were opened, I inspected them. I subsidized the women who lived in them initially, and I think they're still being subsidized. I'm not sure, but those kinds of programs never stop. My youngest daughter is now a volunteer and gets called out when someone is taken to the hospital as a rape victim to be with them and spend time with them and get them through that process. The Y is a very important place in the community. Great meeting this morning. I love the theme. This building is so interesting. It's an amazing place. And I'm glad you told us more about it, Sylvia. The one thing I would suggest is that you got pictures online for the Zoomers. So some of them would never have the opportunity to be here and see this building in person. And maybe even pictures of that small space that the slaves could hide in. There are a few places like that in this community. You also need to lead the applause. You were skipping that entirely, and that's very important. But you did so much prep for this. You started right away last week, lining people up and making sure they were going to be here for their roles or filling the blank spaces. You got a hold of everyone. You made sure that you communicated. Number one important thing for Toastmasters. One thing I noticed this morning, Steve got himself up very quickly when he was called on or when it was evident that he was being called on. Do that, everybody. If you're Zooming, turn your sound on as soon as it becomes apparent that you're going to be called on so that things move along smoothly and we don't have those big gaps. Jen, wonderful evaluation as always, very insightful and encouraging. Les did a great job encouraging David, who doesn't need any encouragement. But you did say the only bad thing, and you really should never use a phrase like that when you're evaluating. Marty, excellent, encouraging evaluation. You're aware that Nancy is taking this show on the road, and you gave her the kind of criticism she needed to improve her delivery. So excellent job. And now I will turn it back over to the Toastmaster for reports.
Okay, we will start with our master this morning.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I was paying attention today. The coffee had kicked in. Sylvia, you're at a bit of a disadvantage in that you're behind the mic so much during the meeting as Toastmaster of the day. I did count more than 5 ums. You also had some long ands and 4 so's. Embrace silence. Silence is preferable to filler words. Keep telling yourself that. Mike Licata, I just counted 1 and a long and. Jason, more than 5. Understandable. You're a beginning Toastmaster. You will get better. When you're not speaking or you don't have a role, count other people's ahs and ums. The act of noticing them will help you eliminate them from your speaking. Mark, likewise, a new speaker, more than 5. David had a so. Jen had 1 pause. Marty, more than 5. You're a little bit off your game today. That's all I counted. Remember, silence. Madam Toastmaster.
Our grammarian, Nancy Fury.
As grammarian today, the first word I heard was chronicle. Wonderful word for the theme. I think a lot of people used it, but our word master will share that with us. One incorrect tense was instead of were. Talking, I heard a drop G, but I also heard lots of descriptive words and phrases. Tidbit, what a fun word. Notoriety, gregarious, ballywick, reflection of what is inside me, mixed bag, nice use of an idiom, electric person, vital in the community, aloof, preamble, trepidation, sum total, launch speech, sunshine and rainbows, determination, positivity and courage, special kind of something, vignette, born with Toastmasters in his blood, win-win across the board. Great meeting with the grammar part. Great meeting altogether. Thank you.
Talk and gesture, Jill Rowling. Judd.
as I chronicle our tech and gesture skills today. There wasn't an awful lot that stood out significantly. Most people had a certain amount of hand gestures, nothing elaborate, just steady. I did notice it was very common, and I think it was this way, this way over in Tom Steiner, that people tend to look one way when they're at the stage, at the lectern here. I don't know if it's because we're all right-handed. I don't know if it's because there's more audience over there. But it's something we can all pay attention to a little bit better. The one thing, Les Robinson, you were very bouncy, but on a tech issue right now, that big blank space ahead of, over top of you needs to be brought down to level. Yeah, see, there you go. You need to somehow get yourself a little closer, have more of your body in the picture than that big corner. And that is about all of the stuff that I found to mention today.
Let me ask David Jones for his Quizmasters report.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. First one up is, what does Beth Banks need by the end of the month?
Money.
Dues.
Dues paid, right. And what did Mr. Moss use the Bacon House attic for when they owned it? Yep, Underground Railroad. And who would Steve like to meet in history if he could? Exactly, and I was very impressed that he knew one of his poems by memory. I definitely don't know anybody's poems by memory. If Jason could go back in history, what would he like to do?
Bet on the stock market.
Yeah. Manipulate the stock market. And when was Dave Licata born? Close, 1948. And without Googling it, does anybody know who was president in 1948?
I know, because I was born in 91.
Truman.
Truman, yes. Got that one right. And Nancy Rose's Super Jared's Glowing Heart, what charity does that benefit? Yes, Children's Hospital of Buffalo. And finally, how many times was the lectern left empty? None. So good job, Amy.
Oh, Bill Russell would be proud of me. Wow. Last is Thomas with our word for today. Chronicle. I snuck one in there. I haven't used it.
So she was able to stick one last one in there. So cross that number out. Oh, we got to 13. So chronologically, 14. We now have 14. I'd like to say that the word paced itself very well throughout the meeting. There was never like a high point where everyone was using it. It was just a nice, easy, steady pace throughout the whole thing. I understand a lot of times the word of the day does get lost. I know I lost track of it a little bit as the word master of the day during the evaluations. I was listening to the evaluations and not sitting there like, ooh, I gotta see if they use the word. So if I missed that one of you using it there, we're over 14. But with that, I think the word overall did really well today. Thank you everybody for being here. And back to Toastmaster for today, Sylvia. Thank you very much.
I was a little distracted reading the winners because Len pulled a fast one on me. He reversed people around. Best table topics this morning is Margot Bittner. Best evaluator, Marty Johnson. And the best speaker today is Mark Crane. There you go, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering
Thank you
too.
very much. Thank you folks at home, and I really don't think I was the best speaker today, but I hope to bring you not only information, but entertainment in the near future, and I look forward to being a part of your organization. Thank you. Hey, the real important stuff.
Well, we have a little conundrum here today. We have more money in the split club bin than we have tickets. Someone dropped a 20 in there.
Oh my.
Is that Nancy? Is that a donation to the club or part of the split club?
I have changed it.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Okay.
No, that's for going forward.
Well, we like big tippers.
I see. Okay, so this is getting split in half or, okay, making sure. And we had extra tickets that were laying out there too. So we had two problems. So like 8 tickets laying outside. I don't know if it was from last week or did you split? Did you tear off 8 tickets? Okay. Okay, so this will be split and these are from last week. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so if you could pick. Okay, oh, did you get 1 or 2? All right, there we go, whatever that is. Okay, let's see, 519, 519. Okay, I'm a winner today, woo! I'm gonna donate the money back to the club, as per my tradition. So this is all for the club, yay, I'll give that to Beth. Next week, the Toastmaster is Jackie Kenny. So she will come up with a to be determined in regards to topic. Katie Orr is a speaker. It looks like I'm a speaker too. Oh, wow. Okay. And also we have Lester Robinson as a speaker. Alternative speaker is Ryan Flore. Eric, are you still there? Eric. He has the cool cat on he's on Zoom there. If you can see it, he's got his he looks like a cat.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Jess Tamino's event? You said you mentioned it the other day.
Yes. Hold on a second. Let me see. I'm on Zoom twice, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, here we go. We'll share screen. There is an event next week at Calhoun's. It's from noon till 5, and I will share my screen here. There we go. Okay, can everybody see it?
Yes.
All right. So this is what's going on. It's going to be at Calhoun's. There'll be a pumpkin painting competition, Day of the Dead spin art, a craft table, mini pumpkins for the kids, lunch for purchase inside Calhoun's, pet costume contest, vendors, and a basket raffle in 50-50. So it's next Saturday, noon to 5 at Calhoun's. Any questions, please feel free to let me know or get in touch with Jess. So, but that's what's going on next week.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I know you wanted to talk about that today. I also wanted to mention if you still have not sent your days off from the club, we'll say, to Len for scheduling purposes, it would be very, very helpful. So please make life easy for the future Toastmasters. Any other announcements and go to the order? The 13th of October will be completely on Zoom. So we'll be reminding you repeatedly, but we didn't want you to show up to this venue and not be Here, we're not here. You'd be surprised, we'll say, and upset that you drove all the way here. So we don't want that. Anything else today?
I do.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
We also want to wish Jill Rowing a very happy birthday today. Happy birthday.
That's right. Happy birthday. Now we got to sing. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Thank you, Eric. Always nice to have a piece of cake, so I'm sure you'll have one later, and a birthday song. I think that's very important. So thank you, Eric, for reminding us about that today. Okay, that's all I have. Look forward to the next meeting. You guys have a great day.